Hello, everyone, and welcome to Civic Platform. This is your host, Zuher Almusre. Today, we will continue the part two from Learn How to Buy a Business in Canada. So, let's continue with our expert speakers.
So now we're going to be talking to Sean Allen. He's the president of Matrix Mortgage. Welcome, Sean.
Hey, how are you? Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. One of the things, once people find their business of their dreams, the next step is, how am I going to fund this? How can I get financing? So I think this element is going to be very interesting for a lot of our audience. And I think they have lots of questions. I mean, that's usually one of the first things that people ask is, can I get financing for this purchase of this business?
Yes.
So,
yeah, I think even before you talk about getting financing, the first thing to do is create a business acquisition roadmap. And within this acquisition roadmap, it's a set of steps that need to take place in order to make sure that the business that you're buying is a viable business, and B, a business that you could come into and thrive and add your own appeal to that. So in preparation for a business acquisition, you want to assemble a team of internal and external experts that can provide you advice and good counsel on A, is this a viable business? And B, is this business making money? And what are the motivations behind the seller of the business selling the business to you? You want to set clear objectives for the acquisition, and you want to prepare an acquisition plan. And, maybe you may need some acquisition partners. So you could potentially search for some of those acquisition partners. Secondly, the initial stage of the pre-negotiations, you want to search the business and the seller's motivations. Some people are selling a business that's losing, right? You want to make sure that you're doing extensive due diligence. And if you find that all the T's and the I's line up, then you want to draft and negotiate a letter of intent with the seller. And then you want to start arranging those financing. So those are some prerequisites to even talking about financing. There's some fine details that need to take place. In that due diligence phase, in order to, acquire the financing, you want to complete that process and take your time doing that due diligence process. And in that process, you may find that the price that that the seller is placing on that property, not the property, on the business, may be, too high, or you may be finding a gem where, there's a lot of opportunity to grow. So just preparing that acquisition roadmap will leave you with a good understanding. Some of the things you want to do a deep dive with is, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the business? What's the vision for the next few years? And what are the strategic objectives of the business, and how do they fit in your vision? So those are some very concise things that need to take place before the conversation happens of, seeking financing. But most importantly, one thing that I find that's overlooked is the strategic plan. And the strategic plan describes the company's current state, the desired future state, and how to go from one to another. And I just want to touch on a few components of what's involved in the strategic plan, because a lot of people don't actually talk about this. They just think, okay, I have to, I see a business where, let's say it's a fast food chain or an art gallery or whatever it is, and they don't actually take the time to do this part of the process, which could potentially cause problems down the line. So some of the things that you want to look at are an executive summary. The executive summary will give a list and a holistic overview of that company, and included in that would be like a company description, just going over what the company does, its core competencies, and where you want to take that business from that point. The mission. Yeah,
sorry, not to interrupt you, but are you looking more at the actual buyer and their skill sets to get the financing, and like, can this person take the company to the next level with their experience, or is it just based on maybe the chattels or the equipment that you can finance? How much of it depends on the new owner, the person who's acquiring the business, their skill sets and what they can bring to the business?
Yeah, and that's a whole part of it too, right? Because you may have a person that has a business and they have been doing it for an extended period of time, and now they just want to cash out, they want to retire. So that's part of the motivation. You may have a business where somebody just needs some assistance to come in and take an equity share of that business and then bring it to the next level, because now you're bringing another level of expertise. So that is all encompassing with that strategic plan and getting an analysis of the internal and external environments of that business. One thing you want to do is you want to do a SWOT analysis, and the SWOT analysis, SWOT, is an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this will be your overall purview into the business and what opportunities can arise by looking at from an outside view. And this will be a perfect opportunity for someone looking to buy into a business to see, okay, where can I come in and make some changes? Exactly to your point, make some tweaks, and maybe I could make this business a little bit better. And then in that analysis, you can come up with a description of your business goals and objectives and project them to your acquisition team, or if you're going to keep the existing business owner on the roster, maybe set up an action plan. Are they going to be on for another 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months? So that action plan is inclusive of your ongoing strategy to acquire that business for sure.
Okay. And so what kind of financing can you or someone who does lending, what kind of financing can people arrange with you?
So when you're talking about financing, there's some key components that go into that. Generally speaking, 20 to 30% of sweat equity is generally what's required. But before accepting financing for a transaction, most investors would want to take a detailed look into, the business and the financial projections for the next 12 to 18 months. Some of the questions that, a would-be investor or financing outfit would ask would be, why is the owner selling the business? Is there a share? Is it a share purchase or is it an asset purchase? How was the selling price established? And a lot of times people don't even know, why they're picking a price to sell their business. What's included in the purchase? Is there any hard assets, or is it all goodwill? And then another key component is, what's your experience in the industry of the business that you're buying? Have you ever worked in this type of field before, or have you worked in the company that you're buying? And if so, what was your position? And also, too, do you have the financial statements of the business being acquired, and what's the financial health of that business? So you need to understand the company's financials and history in order to have a good understanding of, hey, can I provide or get financing? So those are some of the key components. Now, there's various different types of financing, like you said earlier. You want to include the chattels. Is it just the business itself? Is it the business and real estate? Like, there's a lot of components into that. And you have to make a good understanding and get a good grip of what you're looking to do. Not all businesses are going to have real estate included. Sometimes you're just buying the cash flow of the business, and sometimes people pay 4, 5, 6, 7 times the cash flow. So there's a lot of variables when you're talking about purchasing and financing a business. So those are some of the things that I would look out for sure.
So I know like we're in a kind of crazy economic environment right now. We have super high inflation all of a sudden because of the pandemic. And it's making it during the pandemic, it made it very difficult to finance certain types of business. The people who did financing did not have an appetite for hotels. They did not have an appetite for restaurants. We were all staying at home. Nobody was traveling. And these kind of businesses really got hurt by the pandemic. So I know things are opening up, things are changing. Are there certain types of businesses that are easier to fund or more difficult to fund, or are there things that banks are just staying away from and don't want to give funding to at all?
Yeah, most definitely. You hit it right on the nose there. The hospitality industry was taking a huge hit because of COVID, with everything being locked down. But one business for sure, that's taking a hit is the travel industry, especially with the issues around, the airports, not only in Toronto, but internationally. So we're seeing a lot of issues there. But because a business or a sector of the economy is taking a hit now, those are actually excellent buying opportunities if you have the resources. Maybe you're not going to get bank financing. Maybe you get an acquisition team together to buy those businesses. You seek alternative financing methods. So I don't want people to think that, bank financing is the only financing available, because you can get an acquisition team to go out, because in all sectors across the board, everyone's taking a hit. Real estate's taking a hit. Hospitality is taking a hit. Travel and tourism is taking a hit. So, it's across the board. So there's no one industry that's spared. However, getting that management team in place and reviewing the company's balance sheets and historical and projected earnings, the importance of, the current owner to the business and his or her willingness to help the transition and the company's operations and the culture fit. Those are some very key components of your due diligence when you're going out to acquire a business. So with that being said, I think there's a lot of opportunities, because we're not going to be in a pandemic forever. We're not going to be in a period where, people aren't going to be traveling, people aren't going to be, going out to restaurants. Like, once restaurants opened in the city, everyone was back out, spending cash. So it's very difficult to say, hey, let's stay away from this business or stay away from that business, when the fact of the matter is these businesses were thriving for generations before, and we're just in a small transition or a small period where we're just trying to figure out, where we are financially on a global economy, actually, not just a local economy. But there's a lot of opportunities, and if you put a team together, you could definitely benefit long term. So that's one word of advice I would say for sure.
Okay. And what about getting SBA loans? Are they difficult to get, the small business loans?
Yeah, I have a contact at the BDC, and they say that it's easier to get financing. It was very easy during COVID, but now with the monetary tightening, it's becoming more and more challenging, because, like you said earlier, the risk appetite for financing is getting a lot more stringent. As long as the balance sheet and the projections and the earnings are displayed, financing can still be had. But I think right now the way to go is, getting alternative financing, getting a group of people, like-minded people together to start going out and acquiring, whether it's real estate or businesses or whatever it is. I think now would be the opportunity to reinvent that lending arm or reinvent that acquisition team, and really, have a strong plan in place to go out and acquire. I personally like fast food, because a lot of people, groceries are expensive, and it's really difficult for a single person or a family of a family of two or a small family of three. When you're buying groceries, a lot of times those groceries go to waste, right? So I think people that don't require a 12 pack of eggs because they're not eating eggs every day, it may be more advantageous for them to eat meals on the road or on the go, maybe not as many meals, but, a meal here, a meal there. And I find that food waste is a large component to a lot of excess spending. So I personally like the hospitality. I personally like the fast food industry because people are always moving around, getting things on the go. And through COVID, that was one of the only industries that seemed to be thriving because people were ordering Uber Eats, people were ordering Skip, and they were going out and getting that fast food. So I'm a big believer in that industry, and I find that one's a little bit of a recession-proof type of industry.
Business.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know like throughout the pandemic, the price of real estate went crazy. It is normalizing or having a slight correction right now. But still at this point, a lot of people, if you owned your home before the pandemic started, people have tons of equity into their homes. Is it possible to get a home equity line of credit to finance a business?
Yeah, most definitely. Getting financing from your home, I personally think is one of the best ways to get financing outside of your traditional SBAs or SBL loans. So with that being said, a lot of times people, don't even know that they can tap into their home equity, whether it be a home equity line of credit or a refinance. Home interest rates are still, regardless of the fact that the Bank of Canada raised interest rates 2.5% since the beginning of the year, are still at historic lows. So with that being said, if you have the equity in your home, that would be a phenomenal place to tap into to leverage and take equity out of your house to put that into a business. But in saying that, you want to make sure that you're investing in a business that will be successful. A lot of times people invest in businesses and they don't do their due diligence, and they invest with the thought of the best case scenario. And what happens is when you invest in a situation thinking only of the best case scenario, the worst tends to happen. And then you don't have a contingency plan set aside for that type of situation. And then you utilize your last card in the deck, which would be your home equity, to protect you in the event of any mishaps with your business. One thing people need to understand is in any business, growth sucks cash. You and I both know this. We have businesses, and anytime you want to grow your business, you want to make sure that you have a large sum of cash in reserve in order to weather the storm. One thing people need to understand is that in any business, you need to take real cognizance of your cash conversion cycle. And when I say cash conversion cycle, I'm talking about how long does it take for $1 to go out in advertising? How long does that $1 take to come back to your business as cash in your bank account? And if you're not mindful of that key component, you can go out and spend, thousands and thousands of dollars trying to promote and make your business grow. But if your money's not coming back fast enough, you run into a cash crunch, and you don't want to be in a situation where you can't make payroll, because that's the worst scenario that you could be in, to be able to make payroll. So, I would suggest using alternative financing, but your last resort, in my personal opinion, is to use your equity in your home, because if you lose that, then now you've lost your business, you lost your house, chances are you lost your family, and that's a far worse situation to be in than just losing your business alone.
Okay. And so when looking at, I'm sure it's going to vary from industry to industry, but what kind of down payment does someone need to have to buy a business?
Yeah, generally speaking, the rule of thumb is you want to have at least 20 to 30% of sweat equity. So that's your own personal input into the business that you're buying. It'll be very difficult for you to provide or obtain financing if you don't have or don't illustrate that you have some skin in the game. You're going to go to the banks and they're going to say how much equity you have. And if you're saying, I want to put 5%, they're taking all the risk, right? Even with 20%, it's still a little stretch. And I think right now with the current economic climate, 20 to 30% may be on the high end, on the low end. But I think, if you're coming in with 40% or even 50%, that puts you in a stronger position to get that financing, and to really look at those numbers and make sure that you have a bit of cash in there so that you can weather any storm. So 20 to 30% on the low end, but 40 to even 50% on the high end would definitely look more appealing if you're looking to buy a business with financing conditions.
And I think it's not just having the down payment. I think what's also really important is that you have enough cash on reserve so that you can have, 6 months or a year. I don't know what the rule of thumb is, but to have cash in the bank, because you don't want to be undercapitalized. So many businesses fail. If you see a restaurant's open today and they just opened up today and they're gone in 6 months from now, that's undercapitalization. You can't assume you're going to be profitable in your first 6 months.
Mm-hmm. And a rule of thumb for even my business, I like to have 12 to 18 months of cash reserve sitting there, just in case, because you never know what's happening. Like even in my business and finance, we have situations where, and I've seen this in 2008, for example, you have a whole bunch of lenders coming on board, and then within 18 months, a lot of them dropped off. And I see that happening now where lending is tightening up. A lot of lenders in my space, they've, said that they're holding back on lending for 3 months or 2 months or 5 months, whatever it is. And that's happening right now. So making sure that you have that contingency plan in place, make sure that you're well capitalized to weather any storm, because like I said, growth sucks cash, and you want to make sure that you have that interest or cash reserve set aside to weather you through that storm for sure.
Yeah. I remember at the very, very beginning of the pandemic, I was talking to my dad and I asked him, what do you think is going to happen? And my dad's like, you need to be prepared to be closed down for 3 months. And I'm like, that's crazy. Really? 3 months? And I mean, the lockdown was not for 3 months. And this was before we even went into lockdown. I was thinking, like Trudeau said, like a couple of weeks. Initially, that was what I was anticipating. I wasn't thinking months. And, my dad's recommendation was like, make sure you're okay for the next 3 months with all your expenses. And I was just like, we're not going to be closed for 3 months. So we can see that we can't predict everything. We always have to, even our worst case scenario, I think no one ever predicted that worst case scenario would be as bad as it was.
Yeah, and that's the thing. COVID did teach us that lesson that you need to be prepared. You need to have, that monetary fund set aside to weather that storm, right? So I think if you've made it through COVID, then I think, you're well on your way to having a firm foundation to make it through, the next wave, whatever it is. And I think, one thing you have to do for sure is manage your costs. Like we had this conversation many times, right? We're like, hey, you want to make sure your costs are as low as possible, right? Whether that be, if you have an office, maybe you don't need that much space. Maybe you want to go virtual or do a hybrid model, or, use a workspace instead of having, the high overhead. Like right now I have an office I'm paying $20,000 a month and only 5 people go there, considering the fact that in our heyday, we had, 40, 50 people at the office, right? So it's just managing those changes. And yeah, we're able to weather that storm, but who wants to blow, $20,000 a month? It's not something we want to do. But, some other people may not be able to, manage that debt. You know what I mean? So, just making sure you're mindful of your expenses and really taking heed on those type of expenses is paramount in making sure that you have a sound and operable business for those.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sean, for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're super busy. I'm going to share all your contact information with our viewers after the webinar. We're going to send them a copy and we'll send them your contact information. So if anyone needs funding, financing, mortgages, Sean can help you from Matrix Mortgage. Thank you so much again, Sean.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you. Bye. So now we're being joined by Ryan Hillis. He is the VP of Revenue at Meltwich Food Co. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I want to ask you about franchising. So many businesses that are for sale a lot of them are franchise opportunities. And a lot of people may not realize when they're searching for a business that they're actually looking at a franchise. And the franchise business model is a little bit different than purchasing an independent business. So I thought maybe you can share with us what are some of the benefits of buying a franchise business?
Absolutely. So, when you're looking at a franchise business versus an independent business, some of the main differences are that there's a little bit less leeway or control in a franchise business as opposed to an independent business. What you're truly getting with any franchise system is you're getting just that. You're getting a system, a proven model that works. And really, at the end of the day, it's taking a lot of that back end stuff, a lot of those back end decisions, those support networks. It's taking a lot of that decision making out for you and giving you a plug and play system with a proven model that's proven to be successful.
So is this ideal for maybe a new Canadian where, someone doesn't fully understand the Canadian culture, how business is done in this country? Is this model ideal for that type of candidate?
I think it would be. It would definitely be. I think that's an ideal situation for a new Canadian coming into a different country and starting a new life and dealing with all the other stuff that comes along with that. Knowing specifics, ins and outs of how the certain markets work can be a little bit challenging. And I think if you can work with a system where all of that back end stuff is taken care of for you, it allows you to concentrate on what's important, on running the business and putting your heart and soul into that business, which I know anybody would do. And I think it gives you a much bigger chance of success.
Yes. And what about the benefits of having a brand recognition right out of the gate?
That's a great point as well, right? So, what you're having, you're buying into a system that has that brand recognition, has that footprint throughout the country or the province that you're working in. And it gives you the ability to pull from those customers that are really already out there, right? When you're going into an independent, a situation in a restaurant where it's independent, it can definitely be a little bit more tricky. You're going to have to do all of that marketing, all of that turnover from scratch, and absolutely, I think for somebody in that position, it would be an ideal scenario.
Yeah, I know, and I know. It's not a direct competitor, but it's maybe an indirect competitor of yours. But, every time you're driving around at lunchtime, you'll hear Subway commercials on the radio every single lunch hour. And I think that's really the power and the benefit of buying into a franchise system is that you can collectively pool your advertising dollars and get a lot of brand recognition that you would never be able to afford on your own.
Absolutely. And I think that it allows you to get that. It allows you to like you just said, pull that money together and concentrate it in ways where it'd be a lot harder to get that reach if you were independent.
Yeah. I'd recommended a book earlier called The E-Myth, The Entrepreneurial Myth by Michael Gerber. And it talks about why so many small businesses fail and why franchising is successful. And if small business owners would run their business more similarly to a franchise of creating all these systems, maybe you can speak to our audience a little bit about, the systems that are in place, the operations manual, and all the systems that they're going to have to follow.
Absolutely. So, and you really hit it on the head there. Any franchise system really should be very system based, right? It's our job to take that guesswork out for the business operator. There really shouldn't be, for example, in a place, in a kitchen like Melwich or a front end like Melwich, there really shouldn't be a procedure or place where you have to put in any guesswork. There should be a place and a purpose for everything. And that's our job. And that's what we've done. We've built a very easy to run, good, successful system where at the end of the day, it can just be as easy as a plug and play. We give our franchise partners all the tools and the opportunity that they need to be successful. And I think that, I think that those systems are really, really important. And I can see why somebody would want to model their business that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think especially for new Canadians, I think this is something that makes a business really simple. Just tell me what I need to do to be successful. And, you probably, and you can probably speak to, I know you're a growing franchise, your franchisees, probably the most successful ones are the ones that follow your system to a T.
100%. And you know what, I couldn't say it better. And I keep coming back to that plug and play system. It's really, the systems are there to be run, and if you run those systems properly, then you have a very high rate of success, right? And we have a lot of here at Melwich, we have a lot of great success stories with brand new Canadians. Some of those same new Canadians are now getting into their second and their third and their fourth locations, and really building up a bit of a mini empire. And it's really great to see, to be able to help.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. And I think like the systems are in the front end and in the back end. So what people are seeing, like at the cash register, the signage, what goes on in the back end, in the kitchen, the accounting, all that is all systemized. So you're taking 100% of the guest work out of it for the franchisees.
100%. From the moment that a guest walks into our store to the moment that they leave that store, everything in between, there's going to be a purpose and a place for absolutely everything within our system. And I think that that's very important with any business, but by getting into it at any kind of a franchise business, it just really eliminates that risk and that guesswork for the business owner.
Yeah. I know a lot of times people like to say in franchising, you're in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So you always have someone kind of guiding you, kind of like a big brother or a parent looking over your shoulder. It could be kind of annoying for the wrong kind of person. So I just wanted to talk about some of the disadvantages, because this business model is not for everyone.
I agree with you. It's definitely not for everyone. And but you hit it on the head earlier. Like we are there to be that second set of hands for you, be that support network for you. With a system like Melwich, you have that 24/7 support. If anything does go wrong, anything does break, or whatever the case may be, then you have somebody there to help you. And we all really take a lot of pride in that. Our system, our brand, if you will, is really turned into a bit of a small family, and we take it personally, right? It's just as much as if it's our store than it is somebody else's store, right? But if you look at some of the disadvantages of a franchise system, I think that it's really, it definitely is not for somebody who wants to run a restaurant in their own way. The system is there to be followed, and when it is followed, it can be very, very advantageous.
Yeah, there was a brand that was around a long time ago, and I don't see them anymore at all. And every time I would go into a different location, all of a sudden they had like something weird on the side that the franchisee was selling. And now they're not around. And I think they're not around because they allowed their franchisees too much latitude and didn't stick to the system. So if you're a super creative person and you want things to be done your way and you're not really open to following someone else's way, this is probably not a business model that you want to get involved with.
I would agree with that, right? I mean, you are certainly limited within our system when you are in any franchise system. But at the end of the day, that can be looked at as a disadvantage. But at the end of the day, if we are following that system properly, then it's has a very high success rate.
Yeah, it's a proven formula.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that people sometimes complain to me about and say, "Oh no, I don't want a franchise. I don't want to have to pay fees every month." You're paying fees every month because you're part of a system that's working, and you're paying into an advertising fund so that you have ads going on in your marketplace. And you're kind of splitting that amongst all the other franchisees. So, some people are viewing this as a negative, where I kind of see it as a positive. Can you explain to our viewers kind of like the ongoing fees and what they go for and what the benefits are to them?
Absolutely. And yes, you could look at it as a disadvantage. You're paying that fee, but at the same time, like you said, you're putting that into a collective pool where you can really concentrate those larger resources towards a collective goal. And it allows, we have marketing departments, we have support departments. At the end of the day, this is what it takes to keep a system like this going. And I think that, really, if in most cases you can look at a franchise system being able to give you a higher average, volume turnover, because we have all those systems in place. But at the end of the day, yes, there are fees involved. But I think that it definitely takes that guesswork and that extra work out of it for you, right?
Yeah.
I know fees aren't for everybody, but it mitigates a lot of that risk for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think my business is an industrial neighborhood and there's lots of restaurants and most of them are not advertising at all. Most of them are not sending us like coupons to our office like they used to do 20 years ago, or they're not targeting Facebook ads in the small geographic area around our office where they could be targeting us. And, as a small business, usually they don't have the resources to go and invest in like a marketing campaign to drive traffic into the restaurant. So the head office is really working as also a marketing agency and driving traffic into the individual stores.
Absolutely. I mean, and even with a case like ours, as you mentioned before, we are an emerging brand, we're a growing brand. And for us to run a negative in our own marketing fund is definitely not a problem with us, right? Like we're, as a head office, we're more than okay to, to put those extra resources into that fund, to say that 2% isn't adding up to. But at the end of the day, you have, like you said, you have a dedicated agency who has has strong resources, a lot of experience, and they can make sure that you're going to get that exposure and pull those guests in.
Yeah. And you're not business partners, but it's as if you're business partners. You want your franchisees to succeed. And your role there is to make sure that they're going to be successful because your success as a head office is relying on your franchisees' success.
You couldn't have said it better. I always say that, our store's success is our success, right? If our stores aren't doing well, then it's that simple. We're not doing well either.
So who do you think would make an ideal franchisee?
I think an ideal franchisee or franchise partner in our case would be, somebody who wants to be their own boss, who enjoys working with people, enjoys, the idea of being their own boss, willing to take some direction at the same time. We also like to see somebody who is going to be dedicated to that business. We try and stay away from from kind of the part-time owner. Because again, like I said, what you put into your business is what you're going to get out of it. So we do want to have those people who are enthusiastic, who and who really can represent our brand, in the best way possible.
Okay. And do franchisors normally assist with getting financing for the new franchisees?
So we can definitely help point our franchise partners in the right direction. There are certain legalities involved. So we can't directly do their applications for them. But saying that, we have access to a lot of very, very good and experienced consultants. We do have direct relationships with all of the major lenders and some of the B lenders as well. In a case like Melwich Food Co., we have very good ratings with these lenders. So, if you go to any number of these lenders, you're gonna have a bit of a leg up coming from within our system. Overall financing, this kind of financing is much easier to obtain when you're coming through a franchise system, and it really does help when you've had the track record that we have. We did not close one store over COVID. We only opened more. And I think it's been a tremendous help for laying the groundwork for our incoming franchise partners.
So Meltwich is a fast food franchise concept. I know it makes like grilled cheese, mac and cheese, all those comfort foods. I did notice you guys in London, Ontario, near Western University, right in that row that all the students like to hang out on Richmond.
On Richmond, yeah.
Yeah. So is that who your target audience is for your ideal customer?
I'd say, we definitely are, a bit of a younger, hipper brand. I think we definitely skew towards the younger folks. We do very, very well with that, 18 to 36, 37, 38-year-old. And like you said, any of those university sites tend to do very, very well for us. I think that in terms of kind of where we like to target these stores, we definitely want to have good AAA locations. That's one other great advantage of dealing with a brand like ours, is because we're not just another burrito guy, burger guy, whatever you want to say. That really opens up the possibilities for us when it comes to getting into these good AAA locations.
Okay.
You'll often run into scenarios where where you're blocked with exclusivities, but because our menu is so different and so vast, that it really does open a lot of doors for us with all the big landlords.
Okay. I am looking forward to trying some grilled cheese sandwiches at one of your stores. There's none in my neighborhood just yet, but
Soon.
coming soon, because I see you guys are growing rapidly.
Very much so. Yes, we're getting close to 140 locations signed up in Canada.
Wow.
We're close to 50 in the US, and we're also entertaining prospects abroad in the Middle East and Europe. It's just a very, very different concept. I think that's what gravitates a lot of our guests towards us, and a lot of our franchise partners too.
Yeah. It's a great Canadian success story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll be sharing Ryan's contact information. If anyone is interested in learning more about franchising or about the Meltwich franchise opportunity, you can reach out to him, and we'll share his contact information in an email and on the chat on the side. So thank you so much, Ryan. I know you're a super busy guy. We really appreciate you taking the time and explaining to us all the benefits of buying a franchise, the downsides of buying franchises. But I think there's a lot more upside, especially for new Canadians coming into Canada and looking to buy businesses. I think the upside of buying franchises totally outweighs any kind of downsides. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you again.
And actually, this is the last webinar of the day, the last interview of the day. So we're going to wrap everything up here. And we thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. I hope everybody found that the information they received today was really helpful and packed full of information. And please don't hesitate to reach out to anybody regarding their area of expertise in these matters. So thank you again, everybody.
We reach the end of our episodes. Personally, for me, I feel like I have now more experience about how to buy a business in Canada. From all this very valuable information, now I have the ability to start think if I want to buy a business in Canada, which is something like a very good step for myself or for anyone who's watching this episode and interesting for buying a business in Canada. So please, if you find this episode helpful, like, share, and subscribe to see our upcoming episodes.